What's up, guys? This is Coach Grant with First Down Training, and today we're going to be breaking down some of the best Week 11 route running from the NFL 2020 season. We're going to be talking about how you guys can get separation off the line with these releases from Davante Adams. We're going to talk about how he's able to beat this DB, how you're able to restack and run a corner against man coverage, and also we're going to be talking about how you guys can get more efficient with a whip route, okay? So we're going to be looking at Davante Adams, Justin Jefferson, and Keenan Allen today. Three guys that have popped up a lot this season, so let's get started with this breakdown. So the first things first here is Adams comes off with this aggressive just 1-2 right now, right? This in-out release, and he's trying to sell like he's just going vertical and running this speed release. So let's watch this thing full speed, and then we're going to break it down one more time. So he comes off here, gives him this 1-2, pushes vertical, and then runs this dig route, okay? So now, a couple things here that make this work, right? We got a little bit of space to work with this DB, so it's very important because what's he going to be watching? He's going to be watching my hip. He's going to be watching my upper half. He's not going to be looking at my feet. He shouldn't be looking at my shoulders, and he shouldn't be looking at my eyes, right? Hips is where he's going to be looking at. So now, what I got to make sure that I do is that I almost throw my hip. That's the terminology that I use with my receivers, is you guys want to think of it like you're not opening up your hip, like you're like turning your hip. You're throwing your hip out, like you're almost working a crossover. That's why people make the similarities. That's why people make the like comparison with basketball, like you're crossing over, because when you cross over, you're going out. You're crossing over, not crossing open, right? So you see when he comes off here, he uses that first step, and that first step pushes him, right? This first step serves as like a power step. When you guys are working these releases in practice, when you're training on your own, anytime you guys work a 1-2, or like you work like maybe a wide step, you could think of this as almost like a wide step release here too as well, where you use that first step and you step wide outside the DB's frame, and you see where he's stepping. He's stepping just outside the DB's frame, but his toes stay forward and his weight stays on the inside arch of his foot. When you guys can keep the weight on the inside arch of your foot, it gives you that explosion, right? Because if you keep that's where all your explosion comes from. Let me add that, because when you're on that inside, it's almost like a pitcher, right? As a pitcher, get more power. Obviously, I'm not a pitching coach, but when they're pushing off that rubber, they're pushing off the inside parts of their foot, right? Because that's where they create explosion. Same idea. That's where I create explosion. Now, if I could step outside of his frame, but at the same time remain within my frame, and what I mean by that is exactly where he's at right now, being able to stay in an explosive position, not a position where you're way out here and your legs extend, but in a position where your toes are forward, weight's on the inside arch. Now, when you open up your toes, a lot of guys like to do that. They like to step wide, but they open up their toes, and their toes will be pointed almost towards the sideline over here. What that does is that opens up your hip, and it makes it a lot harder to drive back to the inside and be tight and be explosive, because you opened everything up, and you will tend to open your chest up. So again, you see how he's here. He uses that first step to just kind of shoot him. He pushes off this inside leg. Like I said, that's an explosive step. So that first step, he's going to be going left, right. That left step, it's not necessarily about stepping wide outside the DB. It's about creating explosion, but using that step to push, you out wide. Because what's something that we could do right here? Maybe there's a situation where we beat this guy vertical one time, and I've just hit him with one single jab to the inside. I've lined up, I've given him a jab to the inside, and I've pushed vertical, and I've gone, and I've just beat him with speed. Maybe I'm not even getting the ball. That's how this sets up, right? But I got to make it look the exact same with my upper half. So he goes here, throws wide, and you see how his upper half turns. He gives that little head and shoulder fake, but more importantly, he steps outside of his frame. That's the only way we're going to get this DB to react. If you step inside of his frame and you just give that 1-2 and it's not stepping outside of his shoulders, why would he move at all, right? Now, another thing that's important here is that his feet are sudden, right? The suddenness of your feet force a reaction out of this DB, right? It doesn't give him enough time to react and kind of get a read on us. When I'm quick with my feet and I'm sudden right there, one, it creates explosion, but also it forces the DB to react. He's thinking, oh shit, that's quick movement. I don't want to get beat vertical, and especially if I'm selling with my upper half as I'm stepping aggressive with that first step, that's going to get me a lot more space. So that's a great job by Davante Adams working this. Now, again, beating this outside arm, we understand that I got to take an inside release, so what's the arm that I got to beat? I got to beat this inside arm, not his outside arm. That's the only arm I got to beat. I got to take an inside release. Let's beat this inside arm, and let's push vertical. Now, you see, he's got a lot of separation, but what does he do the entire time on the route? He continues to sell vertical. He doesn't round this thing off. He doesn't start to turn early. He sells vertical for as long as possible, and he gets out of this break. That's a great job there by Adams, creating separation off the lines. Watch it again, full speed. That is the technique that you guys want. Anytime you guys are working a 1-2, anytime you guys are working a wide step, and then just like that single jab, quick jab to the inside, speed release, it's the same thing. We got to make our releases look the same, because that's the only way I'm going to be able to get some separation. Let's watch this thing again, full speed. So he gives him a 1-2, pushes vertical, and then breaks this thing off right now. Great job by Adams. So now we're going to be looking at the same thing here, but it's going to be an outside release, right? So he's given the same 1-2, but it's going to be a right-left, okay? Right? So this kind of builds off of what we're doing. Now, this DB is kind of more so in this catch technique, right? Where he's off. He's in this kind of soft press look, so I don't have to give him something right off the line. So you see how Davante Adams kind of attacks him right here. You can see that he's kind of closing the distance, right? Line of scrimmage is right here. He's closing closing the distance with him. He's attacking him. He's trying to get him on the defensive. Because anytime a DB is kind of like in this soft press scenario or where he's in this catch technique, you guys want to take the fight to him. You don't want to sit back and wait and try to create this move back here and create separation back here. Because even if we do get him to go off that platform, he's got more space to react, right? So I want to attack him. I want to put him on the defensive. Because let's say he's inside leverage, he's got 2, maybe 3 decisions to make. He could either sit there and try to get hands. I got a plan for it. I just know I got to beat this outside arm. I want to take an outside release. He could back up, which is what he's doing right now. I get him on his heels, more susceptible to get broken, or he keeps his leverage to the inside. And if he were to keep his leverage to the inside, that's fine. I just created a whole lot of space for myself. I can make a move, keep my head down, widen the distance, and that's a lot of space for my quarterback to make a good throw. So really, I think attacking his leverage is a lose-lose for him unless he stays disciplined, maybe keeps a good base and is able to get hands, and we're not ready for it. Again, it's more so about what we do wrong rather than what that DB does correctly, right? So again, he gives him that 1-2, and you see how much he's selling with his upper half right here, right? Again, he's throwing his upper half. He's throwing his hip out wide. He keeps his toe forward so he could push off of that leg. You see how much he's able to push right here? That's where he gets his explosion. But again, what gets that DB to lean to the inside? Where's he looking at? Hips. I got to throw my hips. You see how he turns his upper half, but at the same time, your toes stay forward. At the same time, the weight stays on the inside arch of your feet. We're stepping outside of his frame. I'm selling with my upper half. I want to make him think that I'm closing the distance, and I'm just giving him one jab to the outside, right? Giving him one jab here, so I'm just closing the distance. Right leg, I'm breaking to the inside, maybe running this dig again, trying to make it look similar, but I sell with my upper half, and I get him to lean to the inside. Now I go. Now here's the thing. This is what makes or breaks, guys. Anybody can get to this position, right, where I get this DB to be stumbling, get him on his heels, but can I widen the distance? Can I keep this separation? How I'm able to do that is I want to keep my head down and run. You see, he created an explosion off of that cut, so he's not going to be having to have to start then stop, right? He's not going to start the release, stop, then have to start again. He's able to use that push leg to create some explosion and keep his head down and really pump those arms and widen the distance with this DB. See how he's not looking back right away? Because when we look back right away like this, we got to know the situation, obviously. But if we know that the quarterback's trying to put this thing over the top, we want to make sure that I keep my head down and widen the distance because man coverage, right? I mean, zone, different story. He's probably got to look a little bit sooner, right? And he probably wouldn't be focused too much on that release. He'd be more so getting to the spot because it's for timing purposes. But when you keep your head down and you pump your arms, that's widening the distance. This DB's already gotten beat. He doesn't have hands either. So I got to take advantage of this. Keep my head down. Let's pump my arms. Let's widen the distance with this guy. And now when that ball comes over the top, you see Adams does a great job of being late with his hands. You see how late he is with those hands. That doesn't give a DB time to react, right? Because that DB's not going to be running downfield looking at that ball. And if we don't give him that indicator that the ball's going to be coming, I'm late with my hands. He doesn't have time to react and try to get those hands up, and I'm able to make this play. It's a great route here by Davante Adams. Great job working this kind of slot fade concept right here. Attacking leverage of the DB, selling with my upper half, trying to get him on that defensive. Now, after we sell, after we create that space, we got to keep that space. So let's keep my head down. Let's continue to pump my arms. Let's continue to drive vertical, widen the gap, late hands over the top to finish this play. Let's watch it again full speed one more time. So he comes off here, attacks him, gives him that move, keeps his head down, continues to pump those arms, and then late hands, DB has no time to react. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about this kind of corner route here from Justin Jefferson. Going to be talking about how he uses this kind of shoulder-reduced technique off the line to rip underneath this DB and how he's able to create some separation. So we're going to be looking at him from the slot here, right? So he comes off the line, and he's got pretty much a free release. This DB's kind of outside shade, right? So there are times where maybe I just got to go, and I just got to get up into the route, right? So he comes off the line here. What he does is he uses this like shoulder reduced technique with his left shoulder, because when you could get underneath this DB and you could rip underneath and you could almost like shrug those hands off, that allows you to restack, right? So maybe I come underneath. I know I could take this inside release. I want to take this inside release on this corner. Now you guys got to be prepared for a couple different things you could do at the top of the route on this. If you guys are forced to take an inside release on a corner, right? Like let's say this DB was outside shade and I can't force an outside release because I got to let this route work too. And we got to have correct spacing on the route because he's kind of working this almost like post, like kind of, it's a weird concept that Thielen's working backside, but I want to take an inside release on this, right? So I don't want to force the outside. So I got to just use that shoulder reduced technique to rip back underneath. I got to work to be able to restack. And when you work that shoulder reduce, you want to rip up and you want to pretend like that DB's got crap underneath his fingernails. Because when I could do that and I could shrug his hands off, when we get to a situation where this DB doesn't have hands and we're able to restack, we can pretty much do whatever I want with this guy, right? I could make him sell one way. I could sell post. I could sell really anything. If I could run a dig, I could work a square cut, work a rocker step. I could work a heavy indicator. And you see what Jefferson does here is he's able to restack, get back over the top, and he works this rocker step. He works this left-right. And you see again, this DB should be watching those hips and should be watching that upper half, or not upper half, but you know what I'm talking about, not his legs, not going to be looking at his legs, and he shouldn't be looking at his head or his shoulders. He's watching that upper half. So he throws his upper half wide, he turns his shoulders, and again, same thing as that double move. You don't want to open up your toe. You want to keep your toe forward anytime I'm working this 1-2. We want to sell like I'm going post. I want everything about this to go post. And how I do that is I don't chop my steps. What a lot of people will do is when they restack a DB, they'll run up and they'll chop their steps. You want to stay in stride. If I can stay in stride and give that 1-2, and I throw my upper half to the right side while I'm staying in stride, everything about this looks like a post right now. And that's what gets that DB to sit underneath. And now again, what do I have to do? Anybody can get to this position. I got to accelerate out, especially against man coverage. You guys got to understand, quarterback's going to put it on this spot. He's going to put it to where we need to be. So I don't need to look too early. The ball ain't even up in the air yet, or the ball ain't where it's supposed to be yet. Let's focus on getting to that spot. Let's keep my head down, widen the distance, and then I can make this play to the top. And again, you see another great example of being late with those hands. Doesn't show those hands early because you see DB doesn't have time to react. He's throwing those hands up late after he already caught the ball. That's a great job by Jefferson working this corner route. Great job using the shoulder reduced technique and being able to create some separations. Watch this thing again, full speed one more time. So reduce that shoulder, shrug, get those hands off, throw that rocker step at the top, then make sure I accelerate out and widen the distance with this DB. Great route. Okay, so now we're going to be talking about this whip route. We kind of broke this down yesterday if you watched the video that we made yesterday with Keenan Allen here, but we're just going to talk about some key points that you need to do on a whip route. So they love selling drag on their whip routes, right? I think that they work a lot of drag concepts, like a lot of mesh concepts in their offense. So Keenan Allen, it's not super important when you're running a whip route to snap your eyes to the quarterback, because when you guys run a drag, you guys aren't running across the field with your eyes at the quarterback, right? You keep your head down and you're really pumping to get across the field. So when you break that mesh point, now I'm looking for the ball, right? We're trying to get that defense, trying to beat those linebackers across the field. Hopefully we get a man coverage look. So you see when he comes off here and he's selling this thing, how he sells this route is speed and committing hips and shoulders. His eyes are down because he's trying to sell drag. He's trying to get this DB to overcommit and think, oh shit, I don't want to chase this guy 50 yards across the field. So he gets on his horse and he's running. He's overcommitted because we keep the same speed, because I commit my shoulders and my hips. Everything about this has got to self-drag, okay? And if you're running a slant off of this, maybe you snap your eyes. If it's a one-step or like a three-step slant, a lot of people do that. Maybe I snap my eyes. Maybe then I commit my hips and my shoulders. But speed and hips and shoulders is important because nobody runs a regular drag with choppy steps and their hips and shoulders drifting upfield, right? And they slow down in the break. You want to be violent with your drop, because when you guys have speed, the only way you could change direction is by being violent with your hips and snapping down on a dime and dropping your hips into this explosive position. Now, he takes 4 steps right here. A lot of people say that, oh, it should only be 2. And yeah, I teach 2 as well, but I can deal with 4 if your speed is going into it. And again, it's not about cutting out steps, it's about cutting out time. I'll take 4 steps at a break if the guy doesn't slow down and these 4 steps are explosive and it can shoot him out, and he sells drag and he gets his DB to overcommit rather than a guy who runs, slows down, pops his pad level up, chops his feet, and then drops out, but he gets out in 2, right? Because that's not selling it. You got to sell the route first. You got to get this DB to overcommit first. So you see how he snaps on the inside leg. He gets to this low explosive position because that explosive position is going to shoot him back out towards the sideline. So you see how he snaps here, 2, 3, 4, and now when he hooks around with that 4th step, he gets his hips almost parallel to the line of scrimmage. His shin angles are on that 45. Low man's going to win. He's lower than this DB because he dropped to that explosive position. He got his chest down too. His back isn't straight. He's not on those heels. All that explosion is on the inside arch of his foot, so he could push out. And when you push off of this leg, you want to make sure that you run your arms, because the same thing we were talking about. You want to widen distance with the DB and accelerate out. That's a great route here by Keenan Allen. Let's watch this thing again, full speed, one more time, selling this whip route. So again, commit those hips and shoulders, snap this thing off, make sure I widen that distance, drop those hips violently. I'd rather have you take more steps and sell the actual route than slow down and take the least amount of steps possible. All right, guys, I really want to thank you for watching. I really appreciate it. If you guys have any questions at all, please leave those in the comments below. And also, if you're a receiver and you want to get better hands, you want to improve your catching, you don't have a quarterback, check out that link in the description. It says improve your hands in 30 days, full catching program, no quarterback necessary. I'll see you guys next time.